Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to all our guests who are joining us today. And thank you very much for joining us. Welcome, a special welcome to our STEM mentor mentors who are on the call. Thank you too for joining us. So welcome to everybody to our first seminar, the STEM mentor seminar for this year. It's quite an exciting one this year. We have a really, really great speaker who will be joining us. But before that, I'm never alone, so I am with my co-pilot, Dr. Serene Ratalau, who I'm going to call up to introduce what STEM Mentor is, what the organization is about, and why is it so important for us to have the type of seminars that we will be hosting today. Serene, over to you.
Thanks, Dr. Sithole. Well, you didn't introduce yourself either, so let me go ahead and introduce you as well. So Dr. Lungile Sithole has not mentioned that she is based at the University of Johannesburg, where she is a senior lecturer and she works in biochemistry. She she is the director of the UJ Soweto Science Center as well as STEM Mentor. So she packs a huge punch when it comes to building capacity, community engagement, and various topics. So the two of us, we started our journey together in, I think, 2020,
Yes.
isn't that so? Where we hosted our first online teacher training workshop together. And from there, we've done various things, including STEM Mentor. So coming to that question, Dr. Sithole, STEM Mentor is essentially a program that aims to build capacity and aims to essentially bridge the school-university gap for girls who want to pursue careers in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths. How we do this is that once students are nominated and selected, they are paired with an academic mentor who helps take them through their grade 12 year into university. We were very lucky enough so far to have a huge success rate and impact with the programs that we ran in UJ from 2022. In 2023, we launched at UKZN as well as Stellenbosch, and this year, in addition to the 3 universities we mentioned, it is also running at UCT, the University of the Witwatersrand, as well as it will launch at Northwest University, and now we're engaging with the University of the Western Cape. So the program is growing on a national level, and we are very grateful to all of the mentors and all of the women in STEM that support the program. So that is pretty much what I want to say. And of course, as part of giving back, because the mentors give so much to the program, we thought about what can we do to help empower mentors as well. And so this is one of the ideas that emerged from mentors themselves. And so we've decided to launch this colloquium seminar series. We did one last year that was quite successful, and now we have one again. So we look forward to what's to come. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Serene. So I need to work on my introductions, right? I need to work on introducing myself better. But don't worry, I'll do a better job with our speaker. Yes, so you're right, Serene. So we really, as a program, we're very passionate about mentorship because the program itself is about mentoring young girls who are interested in STEM-related careers. And supporting them, answering questions that they have. And I think it's important to also mention that these girls that we mentor are regarded as top achievers, right, at these schools. They're high-flying learners, and sometimes with high-flying learners, when they get to university, they get confused a lot in terms of careers and everything else that comes with going to university. So this is the reason why we have mentors for these girls, just to help them and shape them, and then encourage them into the direction that they want to go into. But not only that, we are really excited about supporting our mentors, because with us as well, mentorship can be tough, right? Whether you're a mentor or whether you're a mentee. So it's important for us to engage with each other as mentors and have people who have been mentors for long periods of time to come in and remind us of why it's important and how to approach it differently. So yeah, so we're quite excited. So I'm not gonna say anything else, Serena, unless you wanna say something, but I'm gonna go ahead and introduce our speaker for the day, who will be talking to us about mentorship and why mentorship is important. Why should we even bother being mentors? Serene, do you have anything else to add before I introduce Dr. Bvuma?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, great. So Today we have a very vibrant speaker, very exciting, very beautiful, if I have to say so as well. So we have Dr. Bvuma, who is the director of the University of Johannesburg School of Consumer Intelligence and Information Systems. She has been hailed as a courageous and skilled expert in information technology. She's also known as a leader with a servant heart. We love those. She has the capacity to build relationships and forge strategic partnerships, focusing specifically on impact and digital transformation. Dr. Bvuma is driven by her passion for ICT development. She also has a personal interest in advocating for women's inclusion in IT sector, as well as digital equality. She has served on several boards, which I will not mention. She's also a member of several professional IT organizations. This includes the South African Institute of Computer Science and Information Technologies. She has, of course, received numerous awards, one of which includes the 2023 Women in Technology Award. She's also been recognized as one of the best mentors and coaches. She was also named a 2020 finalist for the Global Awards in Women in Technology Network. Lastly, she was nominated for Mentor of the Year and 50 Inspiring Women in South Africa. So Dr. Bvuma, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone that is here. I'm hoping that I will do justice to that beautiful obituary that you just read. Each time when someone read all of these things, I kind of shy away. I felt like I should switch off the video a little bit because it really does sound like somebody's walking on water. This is maybe just to do justice into the introduction of telling you who I really am. You know, I am a daughter that was raised by both parents that are leading a church in Limpopo, although my dad was in the mining sector. But I grew up in Limpopo from a big family. I've got sisters and brothers. I just love people. I love to talk. That's one of the things that I do with passion. And I love mentoring. You know, I think I have been mentoring throughout my life without even realizing that I'm mentoring. So I grew up in Limpopo. You know what they say, Lungile, that even when you go into Johannesburg, it's never your home. You always say home is that village. So in Limpopo, we grew up in Phalaborwa, in the township called Phalaborwa. But my parents are from the village called Rasokgopo, which I regard as home as well. So that's just me in a nutshell. I go through various challenges like many of you maybe do. I'm a human being. There are days when I feel like I can switch off the phone, switch off everything else and forget all about this STEM or career or being a professional and just do life, you know, simple life. And my kids got 2 boys and they always ask me, what is doing life? You know, because they think doing life is just me being on the books and doing other things. That's what I do most of the time. But anyway, I thought, let me share that a little bit about myself and maybe to demystify that obituary that Dr. Zitola was reading. It's beautiful to read. But nonetheless, from that, I think the little bit that people often don't get to hear, it's how one got to where they are today. And I think it's a story that I often love to share. You know, studying in a rural school, I never had the privilege to understand what is information technology, let alone even heard about information technology. It was only when I was going to grade 12, you know, Lungile, and then I want to be represent the province in my keynote speaking or public speaking at that time. And one of the judges, you know, when I was presenting my public speaking, who was a radio DJ, sadly he passed on 2-3 years back. You know, he said to me, are you sure you're from the rural school? You speak so eloquently and your speech was on point. And I still remember vividly that speech. It was about the future, your accountability. And he was so excited that he didn't know what to give me as a gift. He just grabbed my hand straight into his car and said, wait here. And then he opened the car and then he grabbed a book and he said, this is your gift. I'm giving you this because I know this competition does not have money, nothing. This is your book. And I remember I drove all the way from Phalaborwa, where I grew up, to Polokwane City. And I was driving with my English teacher at that time. I was sitting at the back, and I remember he kept on looking at the window to see what is drawing me so much into the attention of the book. So the book was titled Information Technology. And at the time I felt, my goodness, this thing is so interesting, because I never wanted to be in the mines like my dad, or to be in the teaching sector like my siblings, other siblings that I knew of, or nursing for that matter. I just felt I want to do something different, but I didn't know what is something that is different. And I think that's how I got hooked into information technology. But like they say, the rest is history. And I, of course, enrolled for information technology. And yeah, I came into the University of Johannesburg. At that time, it was the Technikon Witwatersrand as a student. Each time when people say, are you courageous enough? I'm like, show me any girl who comes from Limpopo to be a student and eventually agrees and stand and become an HOD of their lecturers. So that's the story. So I came in as a student in the university, but eventually became the HOD of the department where I was a student. And obviously today I'm the director of the school. I think that's a story to share. And I hope you take it in the humility that is coming with, to just say, you know what, it is possible. It's all about being courageous, and sometimes just forgetting about all these noises that comes, to say, are you sure? Are you sure you're going to be the boss? And telling your professors, your lecturers that used to teach you what to do. You need to kind of silence those voices and say, let's see what I can put out there and what would be my contribution. But nonetheless, I was asked to talk about mentorship. Growing up in the village, you often don't realize that you're mentored, but I think I was mentored throughout my life. And this is not by educated women with PhDs, because I didn't have that. In our family or in the community where I come from, it was just rare to hear of anyone having a PhD. So it's not something that I started with, I'm going to have a PhD. This is my trajectory into my professional life. I had no idea. Just how an example of how I landed into understanding what is information technology through the book that I got from the late Paul Rapetso, Thobela FM DJ, who gave it to me at the time. Mentorship is very important. And I think, I've been mentored by women where I went to buy tomatoes from, the spaza shop next door that I went to. There was just a community of people that modeled how you should speak to the elders. In my culture, they say you don't look the elders in the eyes. And that was just a form of showing, how do you show respect? How do you pitch yourself up? And what is the type of tone that you use in certain spaces? Of course, being raised by a pastor myself, my dad is leading a church. I also served in the church. And I think that also modeled the type of person that you become, to say, how do you then present yourself in certain spaces? So I don't want to downplay that, because it did play a role. And I think oftentimes we make a mistake thinking when we go into professional spaces or we want to be mentored, we're looking for the or the who's. It's almost like you forget where you come from, because I think your values speaks quite a lot into the person that you're going to be. But let me delve into the competitive professional landscape that we are in today. It's very competitive. And mentorship plays a pivotal role in shaping an individual's career trajectory. So there's no doubt about it. And I think this colloquium, I was asked to speak about the practical aspects of mentorship, where I focus on the importance of networking, skills development, and creating avenues for career advancement. I will look at that and expand on this. I am very excited to delve into the aspect of professional growth, because that remains the cornerstone of countless, opportunities or success stories that I have actually heard about, I've observed and witnessed themselves, but often it goes underrepresented or maybe underappreciated. And that is the role of mentorship. Of course, at its core, mentorship is not just about guidance, because people think, oh, we sit and then I guide you. It's a transformative journey. And that's how I define it. Where you look at, how do I leverage the wisdom and experience of this particular person who's mentoring me to ignite potential within my individual self as an aspiring professional. Maybe let's first look at mentorship at the realm of networking. So because we live in an interconnected world, and this is something that I shied away from. It's the truth that I didn't want to face. But however, there's the reality. You know, the old adage that says, it's not what you know, but who you know. You know, it has never been more relevant. And I think that is the truth at most cases in what I have, and I'm talking about my lived experience here. So mentors are, for me, they serve as a bridge to new connections. So they introduce you as well to industry insiders, and also they give you potential collaborations, and also kind of hook you up to like-minded professionals like yourself. Remember, I said like-minded, meaning that there's a part that you need to play as an individual. You can't be like-minded when you are on the other side, and then you want to be hooked up with like-minded professionals when you are pushing another agenda. So you also have to identify what are the strengths that you have, the weaknesses, and therefore how do I then, you know, work with the like-minded professionals. And I'll say this because each time when you want to work with people who have been around and you want that connection, there's a certain element of characteristics that they hold. And I often say they don't have time for mediocre. You know, they don't have time for somebody who doesn't get to the point, because not because they are arrogant, it's just because of how they are wired and what's on the table. So you got to know what you want. How are you going to pitch that thing that you want? And what is the responsibility that comes from your side in getting that? So I think for me, it's also about the relationships. You know, these relationships are built through mentorships. You know, they're often grounded on trust. Trust is very important. I don't think I've mentored anybody else who doesn't trust me. You obviously have to trust me, and there should be respect. And I also have to respect. It's a two-way traffic, of course. Mutual benefit. I learn from my mentees most of the time. If you've been following me on social media, you'll see that I mentor people from various PhD backgrounds or from various sectors, professionals in the industry. However, it's not, for me, it's not about just giving. It's also about what do I get in return, because that's how I get to know. If I mentor somebody from the public sector, I get to learn about how the public sector works, what are the issues around the public space. You've mentioned, Lungile, that I served in various boards. You know, in those boards, you don't just wake up and say, I'm applying, because you got to ask yourself, what is the impact and the contribution that I'm going to make in there? And that's how you get into the board, and you learn the board. So it's never about connection, because people think it's more of someone, and I'm using connection recklessly here, because people think it's just someone doing you a favor, you know, kind of a deployment. Yes, it might be a deployment. I take that. But that deployment comes with a sense of responsibility to say, if I'm going to agree to be the deputy chairperson of the SETA board, which is the State Information Technology Agency of the country, what is it that I'm bringing to the table? Because I don't want to just be a tick in the box where it's Stella, the Black female, serving in this board. So it's all about you also coming in and making a contribution. And I want to talk about mentees, because I'm also mentored myself. You know, I'm not going to shy away from the role that my mentors play in my life. As a mentee, you're also given a rare glimpse into your mentor's professional cycles. And, you know, and I'm talking about oftentimes when I go to certain events, or either I'm invited, the very same girls or women in the profession that invite me, they might think that I have an idea of what's happening. You know, I go into the spaces. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing or what is it all about. But you know what they say, fake it till you make it. So you walk into there in those professional circles, and then you expand your networks in ways that otherwise will be challenging for you to do it yourself. So it's also important to kind of walk into the life of your mentor to understand what they are doing. Maybe let me talk about the impact of mentorship on professional development, and the strategies maybe that are meaningful between a mentor-mentee relationship, and how these connections can significantly enhance your technical and your soft skills, because that's what I was asked to talk about as well. So if you look at both your technical and your soft skills, maybe from a mentorship's point of view on the strategies, is that mentorship in its true essence is a symbiotic relationship between both the mentor and the mentee. So you both grow, learn, and develop. We've touched on that, right? And it's a beacon of knowledge and experience and support that guides you as a mentee through the professional landscape, where I would be able to help you to say, how do you navigate the challenges? I mean, I mentor people from chemical engineering, for example, who, Professor Mashifana, who's in, for example, the HOD. And mainly because, remember, she's already a professor and I'm not even a professor yet, but I was able to mentor her because I've been the HOD before her. And just to kind of guide her to say, look, in this space, these are my own experiences. And of course, share my mistakes as well, to say, these are the mistakes that I did. And I would not want you to make the same mistakes. However, you also kind of give them a space to grow and learn. You don't dictate to them what needs to be done. But I think it's also important that a mentor also shares their insights. Mentors open doors for opportunities. And also it's good for critical career transitions to say, when you move from this space to the next, what do you do? I mean, now I go to my mentee, who is Professor Mashifana, who's now a professor, to say, okay, now I'm thinking of moving into being a professor. How did you start? What are the things that you went through? What are the things that you need to learn? So that's the two-way traffic that I spoke about. And I think it's quite important that you manage your expectations as well as a mentee. Maybe on the strategies, let me touch on what are the key strategies that I use personally. And I want to be as practical and as authentic as possible. You know, like I always say, I'm at my best when I'm authentic. So I had to sit down and think, what is it that I need to do? I've never been great in planning my career to say, this is what I want to do and so forth. I think most of my life has not necessarily been luck. I think it's just being, I call it God's favor as a pastor's kid, of course. But I think I also had to put strategies in place to kind of, you know, manage that favor that I have, if you like to take it like that. But the strategies, I think one that I implemented was to identify my potential mentors, to say, who are the people that I think will make a contribution into shaping these disabilities that I have, or these weaknesses that I have, or strengthen some of my strength. So what I did is to look into individuals who not only possess the technical expertise and career achievements, but for me, I also look at the ones that share my core values and have a genuine interest in my journey as well. So I think that's very important, because I wouldn't want to be in a space where someone is sharing me their wisdom and I also don't agree with their values. Not that their values kind of contribute much, but you know, it's a relationship for me. And the second strategy that I use practically is I engage in professional communities like this one's, for example. So you have to be a member, and also not just being a member, be an active participation. Nobody's going to say Stella is sitting there or Stella is participant number 3 or 4 in this event. You have to make sure that you are visible in terms of your active participation, either in conferences, workshops, online forums like this one's, where you are increasing your visibility and you're also able to connect with potential mentors. The third thing that I did, and I'm speaking here as being an academic, I had to look at the alumni networks. Of course, it worked in my favor because I was a student in the same department, but I overstretched it to say, look, when I was in second year, somebody was in third year. When I was in fourth year, somebody was in fifth year. Or when I was undergrad, somebody was doing postgrad. Where are these people? Obviously, I suspected that they should be movers and shakers, you know, coming from the same institution. So I leveraged on the alumni networks. And here at the University of Johannesburg, we have an alumni office where you can actually go and connect and kind of, when they host those events, make time to attend, because it's that connection, that networking that is required in terms of building your pool of network. The other thing that I do, is to make sure that I build meaningful relationships. And I think that is establishing your clear goals. Define what hope, what are your hopes? What is it that you hope to achieve through mentorship? Because that clarity will not only guide your interactions, but will also help your mentor or your mentee to provide target advice. So you need to be clear. So when you come to me and you say, listen, I'm just frustrated, I want to finish this PhD, or look, I'm stuck, I'm here as a senior lecturer, I want to go to AP, I don't know what to do. That's very clear. You're frustrated, but you're very clear to say, this is what I'm looking at. Or either, I don't just want to be an academic. Stella, I see that you are in the boards, you are doing all of these things. How do I get to be in the boards? Because people read our profiles and they think being in the board is just sitting there and relaxing. Trust me, ladies, you sacrifice a lot of your time. Some weekends, I had to cancel the baby showers events. I have to cancel some of the things and make sure that I make preparations so that I'm able to be active participant in those board sessions. So it's not all gloom and glory that you just go there and do it. And I think the other important thing is ensure that you take feedback and embrace it. And I'm calling it feedback because feedback is a gift, right? Whether it comes in positively or negatively, some people call it constructive criticism. It is a gift. So if you give me feedback that I don't like, it's I have a son who thinks he's a mini professor. He's only 15, but I tell you, he gives me the most horrible feedbacks. But if I reflect, I kind of say, okay, he's right. So some of the feedbacks that you get, look at them, assess them, and also take them as a gift, whether you accept them or you don't. Anyone who gives you feedback, it's a gift because you use it to grow and redefine your skills in a professional approach. Maybe lastly, on the skills enhancement before I engage with all of you, is that mentorship accelerates learning. So if you are a mentee that's not going to learn, it's a problem because you also have to learn. I also don't want to go into my mentorship sessions and then engage with an individual and not be able to level up. Someone was teasing me when the former Minister of Finance tweeted when I had lunch with him and said, but Stella, IT, what were you talking with former Minister Tito Mboweni? I said, I had to read, I had to also engage at that level of economics of the country to kind of understand what was his role, what is happening, because otherwise I'm not going to go there and start talking about artificial intelligence. You can imagine what will be the answer. He's not going to get all this fourth industrial revolution because that's my technical expertise. The question is when you engage with that person from their level of expertise, what is it that you want to align and make sure that you don't get lost in the conversation? So every time I meet a prominent person or I had lunch with them, be it MentHER NITheCS, the chairperson of ESCOM, I always prepare, kind of make my homework to say what is happening in their world, where they have been and so forth. What are the conversations that I'm going to engage with them? So you don't want to go and meet someone and you start talking about the Shebeen things, otherwise they'll be lost. I don't know why I'm picking on the Shebeen example, but anyway, it's an example that popped in. I think maybe let me leave it there so that I can allow people to ask me questions or to engage with myself. You can see that I get stimulated by talking to people, and I want to make a declaration in advance. I don't have all the answers, but I'll try from the best of my ability to give you the best answers as possible. But I think for me, in summary, is just to say that, you need to make sure that the magic of mentorship, you understand that it lies in its powers to transform your vision into the reality. It's not just I am connecting with so and so. It's how are you connecting with them so that your vision becomes a reality. And also those strategic networking, mentorship will help you to access maybe the hidden job markets, recommend them for opportunities, and also endorse your skills. Because some people say, I want to go into the cybersecurity space. And I said, but if you go into that space, do you know so and so? Do you know someone who's in the space and they are doing this? And you gotta own that space through those professional networks. But in summary, I think those are my key practical examples, and I hope that they did do justice and kind of gave you an idea of where to start. I just shared authentically from my heart and my journey into being where I am. And also looking at the mentors that have served as role models. Some of them, I didn't even engage with them. I didn't have the opportunity to speak to them, But I think many of them, you know, I've looked at how they illustrate the power of resilience, you know, perseverance and strategic planning in making sure that one achieves their strategic, you know, your professional success. So thank you very much for listening to my opening talks. I will now hand over to Lungile to take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bvuma. That was actually beautiful. And I want to say, yes, you are well-spoken, very eloquent, like well delivered. That was really great. I love the personal story, the personal story behind it. Yes, that was really, really beautiful. I do have a few questions, but before I ask you mine, I will just mention that anybody who has questions, you're more than welcome to please type them out in the Q&A or in the chat. And we will read them out, and Dr. Bvuma will answer those questions for you. Serena as well, if you have questions, you just show yourself. So I have a couple, but one that I really want to ask. I love what you say about mentorship being a transformative journey. And I say that because, you know, when I started as an academic, I think I took very lightly that, you know, that statement. And I used it as a guide, right? I use mentorship as, oh, just guide me here, just guide me here. And you don't realize how important it is to transform as you're going through the journey. So I really, really love that statement. So what I want to ask you is for a lot of the people that are out there who really want mentors, really need mentors. And as you know, our personalities are so different. You have people who are introverted and they don't know how to approach people. What would you say is being a mentor yourself is the best way to approach somebody who you would love to mentor you, especially if they're not in the same field? So especially if you want more of a personal mentorship instead of professional from this specific person, what is the best approach that won't have you coming off in a negative manner or, you know, whatever manner it may be?
Thank you very much. It's a beautiful question, Lungile. I think the approach, I touched a little bit on your core values. You obviously have to work on yourself as well to understand what are your values, what is it that you want, because it's not about going to someone. I can put you in a room anytime and just test you with either the president or with the VC or with your dean or anybody else. If you don't know what you want and how you're going to approach that person, you're going to have a problem. So it takes a lot of homework from yourself to say, how do I then just speak to the person? Let me be practical. For example, I recently did a webinar with Institute of ITTPSA. And I mean, that webinar, I just simply wrote an email, a message on LinkedIn, a message on LinkedIn to Moira that I respect so much. And for me, it was, you know, when I approached her, I said, Moira, I would like to talk to you about 1, 2, 3, just to understand what is happening in your space. And I was interested in the IFIP, not necessarily that she's going to take me to be a speaker on ITTPSA, but for me, was interested. I wanted to understand how she does this e-learning because she's a professor of e-learning. So I simply just wrote a message. And of course, that led to other things. And I'm not saying just chow everything and take everything, because speaking, it's not difficult for me. It's not something that I would say, oh, you're asking me something that is very hectic. So you simply write to the person and approach them. And sometimes it's easier for me to write that message. If I walk into the room, it depends on the environment. I'm not going to walk into someone where they have a gala dinner and they've had lots of wine and I start asking them things. So you just have to think about who are these people that you want to talk to and what exactly is it that you want to achieve from the conversation with that particular person. I hope I've answered you well.
Yes, no, absolutely, you have. We do have a question in the Q&A. So Angela wants to know, can a mentor also be a sponsor, or the two have to be separate? So here, I'm not sure what kind of sponsor Angela is referring to. So it may be like a bursar or any type of sponsor. So she wants to know, can one be both a sponsor and a mentor, or is it supposed to be separate?
So I didn't get who asked the question.
So it's Angela Matei.
Oh, Angela. Angela, it's a beautiful question, sponsorship. And I'm sure if you followed me on LinkedIn, you probably saw somewhere where I said sponsorship is important. And in my talk, I did mention that mentors are supposed to also open, not they must, but they also open those networking spaces for you. Because if you remember, I said, if my mentee or mentor says, come to this event, that's sponsorship. Because in that event, when I go, I'm going to socialize with various people that I couldn't have access to myself, but they actually invited me. So sponsorship is not only about someone says there's a promotion, I'm going to speak on your behalf so that you're promoted. It's also that little space that they open for you, Angela. And what do you do about it? Because when you're invited, don't just take it any light. I mean, I always say to my kids to say, listen, this one I'm not going to miss. If you have anything else, you better cancel it, because this is sponsorship, right? So I have to attend it. But also when you attend, I can't just show up there with a lipstick and my black dress and looking all gorgeous. You got to do your homework to say, who's the who's and who's, and who am I going to engage with, and how am I going to pitch my conversation with that person? So both are not necessarily separate, but of course, it doesn't mean the mentor's role is to actually do sponsorship. You also have to know, when you're mentored by Lungile, this is what I want to learn from Lungile, to say, maybe you want to learn how she got a PhD, how she get to run the UJ Center or Soweto Science Center. So that's sponsorship, because if she teaches you that, she's sponsoring you in the knowledge that you do not have.
I like that. I never thought of sponsorship in that way. I like that. I like that. I think, yeah, that was, Angela, I hope your question is answered. Yeah, I like that. And speaking of rooms, right, where walking into rooms and looking pretty. So, you know, there are instances where you don't know if your mentor is doing what they're supposed to be doing in your absence. So you don't know if your mentor is calling out your name in important spaces. So how do you navigate that? You know, how do you know, and how do you, I don't want to say make sure, but how do you really ensure that your mentor is saying your name in spaces that are relevant for you and your growth?
Look, I'll give you an example. I don't think it's something that you should worry about if you have the trust between yourself and your mentor. Because if your mentor is trusting you and they understand who you are, and in terms of how you pitched yourself, they will know your strength. You know, I've often got emails or maybe an SMS from top people who says, you are referred by this person. They say they think you can assist here. It's not because it's favor of maybe we are just hooking you up. It's because they know that information technology is my expertise. You know, I excel on building strategies on technology. And they also know I didn't serve on the CEDA board, you know, the small enterprise agency, mainly because the minister just woke up and said, I like Stella. It's because the minister realized that my PhD was on ICT adoption by township SMMEs. It's also that the minister have realized that I've published in the SMMEs and I've been advocating and writing opinion pieces on SMME development in the digital era. So people often think that, you know, mentors are supposed to just speak about you because they like you and they know you. You have to pitch your profile, sis. It's not just your lipstick and everything. What is the profile that you're carrying? So that that mentor would, when they are in that room, they'll be able to say, look, I see you're struggling with this. I actually know this person that can assist you. Maybe they can make a contribution. So I did say that mentorship, it's beyond professional growth. You know, you talk about how mentorship can also help foster personal growth, such as improving your communication skills. Because I did walk into certain rooms where I just froze, you know, I couldn't even know what to say, because it's just a room full of heavyweights. So it's also about increasing your self-confidence, you know, also about developing and having a good developed growth mindset, because you don't just walk in certain rooms and you find, I mean, I recently attended an event that I was invited by Dr. Tamima Zwai, who I cited in my PhD. And after I've cited him and I graduated, I wrote him an email to say, Dr. Mazwai, you know, you wrote beautifully in terms of SMMEs, but I'm writing from the information technology space. So he invited me to his book launch. I tell you, when I walked into that room, I think I was the youngest. I'm not that young, but it was full of veterans where you just ask yourself, how do I open my mouth? What do I say to these people? But I think it's all about saying that space, what do you use to take something away from it? Because you can't just go around and talking to everyone as if you are selling some kind of a profile. You are in the business of selling a profile. So I think it's not really something that you should worry about. It's something that you must work on so that your profile must speak for itself.
Serene, do you have a few questions? I know there are a couple of questions, lots of questions in the Q&A. Dr. Bvuma, you are a hit. So Serene, I'll allow you to read a couple of them.
Perfect. So, Dr. Bvuma, we have a question from Fundiswa, and she firstly says, thank you so much for the thought-provoking message. How can someone keep professional relationships? Do you have to keep meeting up with people?
Wow. I think, again, it goes back to your core values. Of course, there are challenges and there's also solutions in mentorship. You need to address the common challenges within the mentorship relationship yourself. It's also your responsibility. Remember, your mentor is not a God that's going to tell you turn right, left. Today you have legs, tomorrow you don't have. You still are in charge of your own space. And I think, Fundiswa, what you may need to look at is look at the mismatched pairs, lack of commitment and clear objectives. If you are not getting that, it might also be good to kind of withdraw to say, look, this is not helping out. I did have mentors that I've interacted with and I felt, no, it's not speaking to what I want to do. You're driving me into a different agenda. I'm still in charge of my own life because I've set my objectives. I'm very clear of what I want and what I do not want. And therefore, I'm able to say, amicably in a nice way to say, this is not going to work for me for now. Perhaps I will look at it in the future. So it's okay to also own up, Fundiswa, and say, you know what, this relationship is not working. It's not don't have the expectations that the mentor will put their hand here and then you just sit and say it's okay. You still are responsible to say, I'm not comfortable with the hand being here, or I'm not comfortable with you taking me to this events because they don't speak to my goals.
No, I resonate with that. Lungi, you're muted.
Sorry. So I'll read the next and I'll try and combine as many questions so that you can answer them at once. So I have one where Nikita wants to know, especially in the academic space or workspace, what is the difference between mentorship and supervision? And then I have another interesting one from Tsukufatso here. So she says, what advice can you give to people? Okay, well, what advice can you give to women trying to navigate a mentor relationship with a male counterpart? And then I'll read a third one and then I'll allow you to answer. So here we have someone who wants to move from one career to another. So basically transitioning from finance to health. And they would really want to know, how do I go about, how do I do this obviously seamlessly? I assume it's also more mental and emotional thing. How does one do that? And then, yes, I'll allow you to answer those. Then I will do 3 more. Then I will check on time. But yeah.
Hey, Lungile, you're giving me too much assignment here. Let's see if I can get them right. Let's see if I can get them right. Okay, the first one was about the difference between mentorship and supervision. Totally different. A supervisor is dedicated with a specific task. I have a supervisor who supervised me for my PhD, but I also had an academic mentor who spoke to my academic career to say, Stella, when you are the HOD and you are still the academic there, then it means you need to balance the two. So there's different types of those. So they can't be the same. But however, your supervisor can also play the role of mentoring you. My own supervisor for my PhD also played a role into mentoring me. He still does, even today, in many ways than he can even imagine. So there's a difference between the two because the supervisor is supposed to take you from one level. So they are supervising a specific task. But a mentor, it's kind of that guidance, that opening of doors, that networking and so forth. Seho, it's an interesting question you're asking about male mentors. I am the first one to admit, and I'm speaking about supervisors here and mentors. Some of my academic mentors are actually male. And mostly that played a very, very huge critical role, which is something that made me sad that I couldn't get enough women mentors in my own space. But I guess it also counts because, remember, I'm in the sector of information technology, so we didn't have quite a lot of women that you see into these positions or into the space that we are going into. So it's limited. I'm not saying they are not there, but they are not as many as when you go to certain faculties like in education and so forth. So, and having said that, some of the mentors that I had that played a very huge role in my life were from a different race as well. So it doesn't have to be someone from Limpopo in the same village, you know, where I grew up. It was people who came from even the most privileged background who actually assisted me to understand certain things. So I think that's the difference in simpler terms, Seho. The last one, in moving from one career to the other, you obviously have to navigate. And I'm saying this because I know there's an issue of, you know, a salary. You're currently receiving the salary and you're currently doing something else. And I'll give you an example. I often say to industry people that I mentor, your CIOs, the executives in the IT space, to say, one of the things that you can do as an industry person is to make sure that you continue publishing or you interact with your alma mater institution so that you're able to be part of that department. Academic institutions are in dire need of industry partnership. So if you're from the industry, I always say, make sure you interact. And also, if you're in academia, I gave an example that I still interact with my alumni. Most of the people that you see me with and the executives in the IT space, they were the alumni in the very same institution. Of course, when they go to, for example, ABSA, Standard Bank, all this other banking sector, they build other industry networks as well, which I'm also exposed to. So I think it's important that you plan your career, you know, with the right mindset of the people that are in the space to say, if I want to move from finance to health, speak to the health people to say, what does it take to be in the space? Because sometimes the grass looks greener on the other side, but it's actually good to go to that greener side very much well armed to say, how am I going to navigate when I get to that space? It's a disaster that you get to health and then you realize actually finance was better than the health. So make sure that you do your research and then you're able to put strategies in place to get into that space.
Sorry?
So we do have 3 more questions in the chat. I'll read 2 of them. So Manox would like to know, what if my mentee needs, for an example, a tutor that I can also be? How would you advise that we separate the two? Or should it be separated, perhaps?
I missed that question, Serene. Can you just repeat it for me, please?
Sure. This is a question from Manox, and she says, what if my mentee needs tutoring where she could also be the tutor? The question is, how do you advise that we separate the two, the mentorship from the tutoring? And I just added on to that, should it be separated? Maybe that's the first thing we answer before that. And then the second question is from Letabele. So she says she has never had a mentor before. So what should the mentee do to get the best out of this relationship with the mentor so that you're not wasting the mentor's time? And then adding on to what Lungile had said earlier about introverts navigating mentorship relationships, should a mentee have a list of everything that they want to learn from a mentor? Do you think that's advisable or should it be more flexible?
Okay, I missed the last one. I'm going to ask you to repeat that, but let me take 2 questions before because I think it's very heavy load for me to digest. I was actually connecting Letabele. If it's Letabele Mpatlele, she's naughty because she's my mentee. I don't know why she's taking advantage of the platform. But anyway, I'll respond. But what I wanted to respond to in the question of the tutor and mentorship. Sometimes you take a colleague who we are on the same level as a senior lecturer, and I'm also a senior lecturer. You can mentor that person because remember, I always say for me, mentorship is not about titles. It's not about I am in this position, therefore I know better. You know, I can be mentored by people who are actually below by myself. And mainly it's maybe learning self-confidence. You know, you see this young person, they just very confident. And I can observe them and see how do they do it. I've got the young boy, and he's a man now. He won't agree when I say a boy, but I always call him a boy because he's my boy. You know, he's so confident. He knows how to stand on the podium and just address anyone. He doesn't care whether it's delegates from international or so. He's, you know, I can't do that because I have to digest and manage myself. Believe me, I have to manage myself to say, how do I get into that space and do it? I think it's not you can't differentiate the two However, I pick up that you're more talking about boundaries. Maybe you are saying, how do I set the boundaries to say you are the tutor? I'm not here to mentor you. This is the role. So you can set that as a professional, because mentorship is very personal. Mentorship is not like coaching. So my mentors can WhatsApp me anytime. My mentors can drop me voice, mentees can drop me voice notes. And that level is because that trust and the core values have been built. They know that during this time, Stella, it's probably in her morning devotion or praying or so, because there's that level of knowing one another in a way of how do I pitch myself and so forth. Letebele's question, I don't know what she's saying. I've never had a mentor, because I can read it here. Okay, Letebele, you've never had. I thought I'm the one here, so I'm exposing her, because what if it's that's Letebele that I know. But I think instead of wasting your mentor's time, I've touched on it to say you have to also be vulnerable enough, Letebele, to say, these are my fears. I actually don't even know. I just admire the things that you do. Or maybe I just admire you maybe achieving the things that you're achieving. So you can look at Serene and say, Serene, how did you start this thing mentor? What inspired you? Because I know Letebele is more driven with, she wants to make societal impact. And by the way, she just recently graduated with a PhD and a chartered accountant at the same time. So I'm celebrating her as well. I'm sure she doesn't like this, but I celebrate it. It's unique. Nobody gets a PhD and also CA at the same year. So congratulations to Letebele. So I think it's that time when you have achieved all of these things, then you ask yourself, where do I go from here? What do I do? So I'll leave it at that, and hopefully Letebele will just abuse my WhatsApp for more questions.
Well, congratulations, Letebele, on those wonderful accomplishments. Okay, so the next few questions are very similar. So Angela and Busisiwe, their questions are similar, and what they really want to know is, how do you overcome having that imposter syndrome, right? Busisiwe specifically asked, how can you advise on coping strategies for individuals experiencing imposter syndrome? Then I have two questions from Sikhofatso, quite interesting questions. So the first one, she says, what happens if you want somebody to mentor you, but they don't want you? So yeah, so that rejection. And then her second question is, what happens, and this one is really interesting, what happens when you feel like you've outgrown a mentor? Is it even possible to feel like you outgrown someone? And then I'll just pop in Sharifa's question on what are the characteristics of a good mentor?
Wow, sure.
Tough.
Loaded questions. So I'm going to try. I was trying to write them down so that I don't expose myself here of not catching up of all these wonderful questions. But I'll start with Angela's beautiful question, Angela. Imposter syndrome. I touched on it, but I didn't call it an imposter syndrome because I don't like calling it an imposter syndrome. I think the biggest thing is we all go through some challenges. I still go through them even today. Believe me, I still go through challenges where I say, how do I deal with this situation? I have no idea. But I think what has worked for me, and I'm going to be practical and honest with you, is just being authentic and being honest to say, I do not know. And I am scared. I don't know how to navigate this, because often we think what we go through, it's only us who are going through that. You find that the very same person that you look up to, they actually go through the same thing, or maybe they went through the same thing. So I think to overcome it is to first acknowledge it, to say, look, I have a fear of speaking. I have a fear of engaging with people maybe at a higher position than mine, or either I don't know how to communicate, or I don't know how to write that email. There's always help somewhere. So, but the first help, it's maybe you identifying, what are those challenges that you're facing for you to move to the next level. So I hope I did justice to that. So there's no magic answer in that. I think it's just about acknowledging it and working on those weaknesses to say, how do I overcome them? How do I get out of it? Because if you're going to say, I have an imposter syndrome, I tell you, even next year, you're going to still have it. Even after in 2035, you'll still say, I have an imposter. But if you work on it it starts improving slowly and surely. So I think it's something that you need. And as soon as you work on it, trust me, you start realizing, actually, these people are not different from me. They are human. They go through the same challenges. They're actually worse than me, you know? So I think it's something that practically you have to work on yourself. So mentor rejection, and maybe I'll touch that and build it with outgrowing a mentor. Mentor rejection, I did go through it myself. I think there's one that literally hit me so hard, because at that time, I was feeling very lost, and I wanted to find somebody who can guide me, somebody who would understand where I'm coming from. And, you know, when this person said, I don't, unfortunately, I cannot do it. I don't think I was ready for the no, mainly because I'm looking for a female. I'm looking for somebody who looks like me, who's going to understand my village issues, my stories, big families, in-laws, and all of the gemors that I go through. And when this person said no, I felt, that was a serious punch. But you know what? It hurt a little bit, it hurt there. But afterwards, I understood, because it's actually, I respect what they did, because it's better to be honest than to be tagged along, because mentorship is quite heavy, it's demanding. I love my mentees. I spend time with them. And sometimes I often ask that, do they know that if I spend an hour with them, for me, that is very expensive, because my calendar and everything else that I need to achieve for myself and everything else about my life, it's just time consumed. But when I spend that time, it's a gift. Because for me, I take it very seriously when I say you are my mentee. Litebele will know, I think on Sunday, or it's either yesterday or on Saturday, actually WhatsApp there to say, hello, I don't see your Google profile. Where is your Google profile? I don't do that because I'm bored. It's because I carry you with me. And often when you pop into my mind, I will wonder to say, what do we do then to move you from one step to the next? So mentorship, it's something that is very personal. So rejection, take it positively. There's always other people that you can look up to and see. And mainly because people say no because they don't have the capacity to do it. So just accept that. Outgrown mentor, I still have relationship with my mentors now. Some of them, I don't get much at that time. For example, when I was still doing my PhD, there were mentors that I really needed at that time, academic mentors that spoke to this. Of course, I wouldn't say I've outgrown them. I just think my goals have just shifted. I no longer need somebody to tell me how to get a PhD. Instead, I'm the one who tell people how to get a PhD. What is the easiest way? In leadership as well, I've outgrown being told that this is what you do in management. Not that I've stopped learning. It's a continuous process. I still learn. But you outgrow certain things based on you growing as well as a mentee, because you get to a stage where your goals are also shifting. I used to struggle to know, how do I even write an abstract? How do I do this? But I've outgrown that now, because now I'm more into supervising. I know how to do an abstract and all of those things. Of course, continuous learning is part of you. You never, hit yourself in the shoulder and say, I've got it all. You continuously inject yourself into learning, so that you can, kind of limit that time frame that you've had with certain mentors, because now you are engaging with others in a different level. And I think it's just a healthy thing.
The last one was characteristics of a good mentor.
Oh, yes. Oh, I don't know why I forgot it, and I'm posing as if, I'm done. I think characteristics of a good mentor is the one that really has the heart of the mentee. You don't do it because you gain something. We don't get paid to mentor. I don't receive a cent from any mentee, or they pay me a certain amount, because for me, it's all about, what do I know? And not only about what do I know, but who do I know? And how does that then allow the people that I'm mentoring to go into that space? So I think for me is trust. I spoke about it. It's grounded around your core values. It's respect. It's also acknowledging mutual benefit. When I interact with Litebele, and I'll pick on Litebele because she's here, she's in a space that I don't know much about. She's in a space that is different from my space in terms of our sectors or our expertise. but you gotta also say, what is it that I'm learning from them, without making yourself, because my mentorship strategy is not me and this person. It's always, we are always here, on the same level, engage and have conversations. So I think it's all about your core values, being a good listener as well. Because remember, I spoke about the strategies of seeking out your mentors, that you look at the person who possesses not only the technical expertise, but also the career achievement. How do they carry themselves in public? What are their core values? And do they have a genuine interest in mentoring you? Because they have to be interested in you. If I'm not interested in you, I won't pop you your WhatsApp and say, hey, I don't see your Google Scholar profile here. So why should I? I mean, I could be having my ice cream or having my cappuccino and not spending my attention on you. Yeah, I hope I did good justice in that one.
Dr. Bvuma, from me, I would like to say thank you so much. Thank you for your time, but most importantly, thank you for your authenticity. It came through, even when you're answering the questions, you are just authentic. And for that, thank you. I will hand over to Serene to do the closing. But thank you, and we will definitely be inviting you again. So, check your calendar for us. But yes, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sithole, and thank you, Dr. Bvuma, for your time. I echo everything that Dr. Sithole has shared. We thank you for sharing your time with us, because as you mentioned, it is expensive, and that is the case for everyone that's trying to develop their careers. And so one of the things that we all have to, I take away as well, is about managing your time and how you use your time in the most effective way to progress in your career, but also to impact on your mentees and in your own growth. So I want to thank as well all of the mentors that took out time today to join. So thank you to everyone from the STEM Mentor family and everyone from beyond. This is something that we'd like to continue doing. As you can see, this was a very beneficial and such a good learning experience for everyone. I learned a lot from Dr. Bvuma right now. It was very inspiring to hear about your personal journey, as well as hearing about the navigations, the tips and the tricks, the soft skills you touched on, how to use opportunities, how to put yourself into significant spaces, increasing your profile. There were so many things to take away from today. So thank you for that. From Lungi and myself, we are so appreciative, and we now bring this to a close. We are 2 minutes over. So we thank you. We're going to stop the recording. This video will be available on YouTube for anybody who's missed it. There's so many thank yous coming in the chat box, Dr. Bvuma. Everybody found this truly beneficial. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me, and all the best to the participants. And women, keep going. Don't give up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.